I decided to do a special episode today. It's not going to be a typical episode. I'm just going to talk about, in this particular one, the Surviving R. Kelly special that premiered on Lifetime this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It was a 6-part series. 2 episodes were played each night. If you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest watching it. It was it was a lot. It was a lot. I will admit that it was a lot. It was draining. It was disgusting, but it was needed. This story was needed to be told in this way. And just think about how much there is that we don't know or didn't really pay any attention. Included interviews, statements from people who have been in R. Kelly's circle, victims of his, who are now out here spilling the tea of pretty much what we already knew about, the dirt that he was doing with these underage girls. But honey, we did not know the half of it. I mean, I can only speak for myself personally, but I remember making comments not too long ago, maybe a few years ago, and people at that time were still coming to R. Kelly's defense, making comments about, well, when we were in high school, we dated grown men and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, did that still mean it was okay? And you were a teenager then. So of course you have a different mindset, a 30-some-year-old adult, to know that that's not right. I hope you do. And especially people were defending him who have children, and some of them have daughters. Now I see that, quite a few of them are actually disgusted and can't believe how people support R. Kelly and all this other stuff, when just a few years ago, y'all were coming at me and other people who were speaking out against R. Kelly and his actions and things like this, but I digress. So let's just get into it, because instead of explaining what it was about, I just really want to go in. I have a cold that I've been battling for almost a week now. Yeah, about a week now, and it's really getting on my nerves. So if my voice is jacked up, it is what it is. I may be a little bit more crass, maybe, I don't know, because I get irritated when I'm not feeling good, because I don't like to be sick. So there's that, but let's just go ahead and get right on into it. John Legend, who was involved in this, he spoke as basically pretty much a peer to R. Kelly in this business, as well as someone who grew up on his music. And, he said it best. R. Kelly's music was a soundtrack of our teenage years and pretty much early adulthood. If you were a teenager in the 90s, you grew up on R. Kelly. I mean, I love his music. I still do. I can't deny that I love his music. I will never deny him the fact that he has always put out great music and that he is a musical genius. You cannot deny that. However, there has to come a time when decency and compassion come in, and you just have to let some things go. We'll get to that later. And you know what? Throughout this, I'm not even going to really go in on R. Kelly, because the man is just sick. He is sick. He has a problem. We've known what it is for so long. He's been exposed so many times with all this new stuff that's been going on, and then now he allegedly has this cult, which not only shows how sick he is, but it also shows the progression of his sickness and what he had been training himself to get into. Because this is nothing but a sick game to him. That's all it is. It's about a game of power with him. And R. Kelly is a person who needs to be in control of things, because growing up, he felt like he didn't have control of anything. This alleged cult that he has, or he had, I don't know how many women, because yes, they are technically women, even though most of them did still start out as teenagers. I guess them being 19 and over now, or what, some maybe 18 and over or whatever. But I guess them technically being quote unquote adults, it makes it okay now. Like everything's okay. I'm only involved with girls who are legal now, and there we go. It is still extremely sick. And to think that this is going on with someone who we grew up on and listening to his music blows my mind. This Lifetime script that he has created in his head is just way too much. It's over the top. The Pied Piper of R&B. Now, when he first started referring to himself as the Pied Piper of R&B, I don't know if people caught that, but I think that was around the time when I started giving him the side eye, because I knew the story of the Pied Piper. Which the Pied Piper was a grown-ass man who played a flute. Was it a flute or something like that? Some kind of musical instrument. I think it was a flute. And the kids loved it. And he would play music to get all the kids to follow him, and they would never be seen again. And it was mainly as payback to their parents who wouldn't pay for his services. Now, I always thought that it was just another one of those sadistic children's stories to scare our asses because, back then we had some crazy stories that we were told. Now the kids are all coddled and everything, but we had some stuff. But to come to find out, it was actually based on a true story. I took it as one of those stranger danger type deals. That's what I took from it. Don't follow a man or an adult who plays a flute. Okay, whatever. Now, what happened to those kids when they disappeared, I guess that's for your imagination to take you wherever. And maybe when the story came up, people didn't think like that back then. For someone to reference themselves as the Pied Piper is not a good thing. And people probably thought that was just the cutest thing. Like, oh, the Pied Piper. Yeah, I've heard of the Pied Piper before. If you never heard the Pied Piper before, you were probably just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cute, whatever. And as I mentioned, it's allegedly based on a true story. I'm just saying. Kells has been telling on himself in his music for a very long time, and it's definitely intentional, obviously intentional. He's putting it out there to be provocative, but it's reality. R. Kelly is someone who has been getting away with this forever, truly believes he's invincible because he's always had this power over people, and he's getting away with this horrible crime and has been getting away with it for at least 30 some years. So pretty much what R. Kelly would do is he would hang out at high schools, hang out at malls, fast food restaurants, wherever teenagers would be. He would have just people who were around him give his number to these young girls. I would hear, and this is alleged, but this is what was told to me by people who were around at that time. He would approach these girls and ask them, do you have, can you sing? Can you play any music? Can you write? Anything within that. And if they said no, he would just keep talking to them and tell them that, I think you're beautiful and you could be a model. How about I put you in some of my music videos? Now, of course, if you hear this as a 14, 15, if you're under 18 and R. Kelly is telling you this, of course you're going to be like, oh, okay. Of course you're going to, that's going to intrigue your senses. He gets you. Different from any other predator with anything. Now, he may not have been the most intelligent person, but Robert is a crafty girl. And can we talk about how he was always ready to get it on anywhere? I mean, he had a bed, a mattress, everywhere. In the studio, in the gym. I mean, Lord have mercy. It didn't matter. That's sick. That is so sick. Oh my gosh. But let's move on to something else. Now let's talk about victim shaming for a second, because there has been a lot of victim shaming going on. I do want to get this out the way real quick because I do really and truly believe that R. Kelly is a victim too. It was exposed that he was molested as a child by a family member. They won't say who it was, which they don't have to, but I'm just assuming that these people were obviously very close and they're obviously still alive. So there's that. He was also bullied terribly because R. Kelly couldn't read and write. He tried and he just couldn't do it. But he had a talent, he had a gift, which he still has to this day. That's one thing you cannot take away from R. Kelly is his musical genius. He's a genius. He can do any dang thing when it comes to music. I mean, let's just keep it real. We had to learn how to separate that. And going back to the victim thing, he is a victim. His older brother, Bruce Kelly, said that, he wasn't a street kid. They grew up in the hood. They grew up in a bad neighborhood, but he wasn't a street kid. He said people would look at R. Kelly the wrong way and he would just start crying. So there's obviously all of these things that carried on throughout his childhood that of course he didn't get help for. He didn't talk about him with anybody. He just let it progress and build up. And then once he got money, fame, and power, he became this person that he always wanted to be, along with this sickness. He truly is sick. Molester, whatever you want to call him, pervert, whatever. He's a sick individual. He has issues. He has a sickness. And he needs help. Now he's in his 50s. It's never too late to get help, but the seed has pretty much been sown and ingrained in him. So I don't know. We'll just have to see what comes of this. Now I did get a little off topic, but still the victim has now become the perpetrator. And that's when you need to try to divide that line. Yes, he's sick. Yes, he's a victim, but he has damaged so many lives. But let's talk about victim shaming real quick because you constantly see this. And it's especially when it comes to to women, and especially when it comes to black women. And mind you, even I guess girls too, because remember one of the jurors, it was an older white guy, he basically said that he voted for his innocence because he didn't like the women. He didn't like how they talked. He didn't like how they looked. He didn't like their attitudes. He didn't like how they dressed. It was just the most ridiculous thing that you're going to let an accused pedophile get away just because you don't like the way someone looks or they're talking. But sadly, that's just how it is for women, and especially black women, black girls. It amazes me how many people, grown people, have put up these blinders just because it's a celebrity. There's so many people who talk about, oh, I'm not fazed by celebrities, all this other stuff. But when it comes to celebrities, you just have this different mindset about how they should be treated than the average person. Just because people stress before they speak out about this or anything, and they'll say, well, I think R. Kelly is disgusting. I think he's guilty. But if you turn around and say stuff like, if you aren't bisexual, why would you have sex with another woman? Why weren't you in school instead of the courthouse? Why would you let him videotape you? Why were you hanging around grown men in the first place? These are real comments that I have seen and heard people say. But then you turn around and victim shame, which is asking these questions. That's a part of victim shaming. It's just like you saying, not to be in your business, but not trying to be offensive, but it's the same thing because you really don't feel what you're saying before. You're just trying to ease the blow, pretty much. That's what you're doing. When people do that, because you can't say that you feel one way and then turn around in the next breath and attack. I just don't understand why people do that and think it's okay. These were young girls, except for two, and we're going to get to them in a second. These were young, impressionable girls. And as many have mentioned before, when we were in high school, there were grown men coming to pick up plenty of girls, and taking them to Northland Mall, taking them out to eat. And we know that's not just what was going on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it all the way real. We're all grown. Let's just keep it real. We know that's not just what was going on. You knew it wasn't right, but it was fun. It was exciting to get the attention of an older person, 15, 16, even 17 years old, even 18, even though you're legal, still to have someone in their 20s showing you attention and wanting to be around you, wanting to do things for you that you're not able to do for yourself. Yeah, it's exciting. So you don't see anything wrong with it, but it's not right. Or I shouldn't say it like that. It's not right, but you still do it. So why shame these girls? They have been through enough, regardless if you don't believe them or not. Let's say that they are lying. Let's say a couple of them are lying, whatever, but still, if they're out here telling this story, why would you still victim shame them? Why would you still attack them in a way as to where you're basically taking up for someone who you probably do know in your heart is doing wrong? Because this stuff with him has been going on for 20 plus years, probably closer to 30 years when you think about it. Okay, it's 2019. R. Kelly came on the scene in 1991. So he was doing this stuff before. He was hanging out at high schools and at malls. But everyone wants to turn around and say, oh, these girls were just fast and they knew what they were doing. And why would they want to be around grown men? And, why would you have sex with a grown man knowing that, you're not ready for that and everything like that? If you haven't been in a position like that, you can't speak for certain people. Everyone always wants to speak for everybody else for things that they don't understand. And yes, not only at a young age, at really any age, people can be manipulated and taught to believe certain things. That can happen. But especially when you're an impressionable kid and you have this famous, powerful man with money doing all these things for you and who most likely took your virginity and you don't know how to handle it, you're going to pretty much fall in line with this dude. And if you're victim shaming and trying to throw everything back on these victims, then there's something wrong with you too. I feel that victim shaming is just another way of deflection. I feel it's just another way to show how you feel, even though I know this person has done these horrible things, I still like his music. He didn't do it to me or anybody in my family, so why should I be worried about it? Therefore, I'm still going to listen to his music. When you victim shame, it's just another way of deflection. And to me, deflection is just another form of acceptance. So you're basically accepting what he has done. It's just a cute, covered up way to accept it. And this happens in many facets of life. Instead of just accepting something for what it is, good or bad, you deflect from it, and that makes you feel more comfortable in accepting how effed up something may be. Now, Bruce Kelly, let me give you a little bit of this as well, because I see why you were where you're at. For those who don't know, Bruce Kelly is R. Kelly's older brother. You disgust me as well. Somebody posted that you are in jail for robbery, something like that. Robbery, theft, something. Same difference. The way you were talking, I thought you may have been a little bit like your brother, no shade. Even though you threw in there, and I quote, "I like older women. It's a preference. Everyone has fetishes, so what's wrong with my brother?" You got an immediate side eye from my sick ass that day right there. Because first, there's a huge difference between two consenting adults. Regardless if the woman is older than you, the man is older than you, if you both are consenting adults, that's one thing. Secondly, your brother's sick. Can we just address that for a quick second? And lastly, your brother engaging in sex with minors, it's illegal. So that's what's wrong with it. That's what's wrong with it. That's what's wrong with your brother. And obviously that's what's wrong with you because you don't see a problem with it. However, seeing that you're in jail right now, it's apparent that you don't care about the legalities of the world. So there's that. But you really just didn't need to be on here because you did not make the case for your brother at all. Then they were talking about the trial, and it was put out there that, of course, R. Kelly was denying it wasn't him, and his quote unquote legal team said it was your younger brother, Carrie. When Carrie denied it and said it wasn't him, you had a problem with Carrie, talking about you could have been rich. So I'm going to admit that it's me on the tape just so I can get rich. And when I admit that it's me on the tape, I'm not my brother. He's not going to help me because he already done sold me out. He didn't come to my defense when my quote unquote legal team said that it wasn't me, it was him. And all you could come back with is that you could have been rich. Wow. Your defense of your brother just made him even more suspect. You did not help his case whatsoever. Child. And R. Kelly said that they didn't have anybody come to his defense. Your big brother was right there for you, homie. Right there. So, Bruce, that's where we're going to leave you. And let me address these two women real quick now. They were victims as well. Let's keep it real. These two women were victims as well. And you see, I'm not calling them teenage girls because these two were both well into their 30s. Kitty and Asante, they were featured on this special as well. They were also quote unquote brainwashed and held captive by R. Kelly. And pretty much the way I took it is that these two women were his beards. Okay, they basically were his girlfriends out in public, so people wouldn't be like, oh, okay, he's not around underage girls. That's pretty much what their place was to me. Now, they both knew that he had other women. He never showed, let them know who the other women were early on until he had them. And what I mean by had them is had them under his spell, because that's pretty much what it was. Now, Kitty and Asante, as I mentioned, were both in their mid-30s. What on earth did you possibly think made you any different? Okay, yeah, you were grown women, and you both said that you were fans and, you didn't believe the rumors and everything like that before. So, okay, I get that part, but so were y'all there to just prove that he didn't just do this to underage girls, which, okay, I can see that part. And especially because his wife, Andrea, she wasn't underage when they got married or even when they met. She was 19 when they met, so I'll give them that. But the two of you were old enough to know not to get yourselves involved with this idiot. All you all saw were them coins, that fame, and R. Kelly. That was all you saw. And if you did have an inkling that something happened between him and underage girls in the past, you probably felt, oh, he just needs a grown woman. Yeah, he showed you. He took and showed you. And yes, as I mentioned, these two are victims as well. But they knew what they were getting into when they got with this man. I don't care if you didn't believe that he was capable of the things or whatever. And then it's like when they said that they were able to leave, they just left. So this just proves that it doesn't matter how old you are. If you just have no self-esteem, you can get yourself into any crazy situation. It doesn't matter how old you are. Now, I know that there is a book out by a woman, who was a part of R. Kelly's cult or whatever you want to call it. I know Kitty and Asante both allegedly got book deals. Sparkle, after this, released her first song in over 20 years. I mean, come on now. Do what you got to do. We all got to survive out here, but when stuff like this happens, when it seems like there's an ulterior motive for you being out there, it takes away from you being the victim and you turning into an opportunist. And takes away the validity of this whole thing. And I will repeat, yes, Kitty and Asante, victims as well, but y'all's old asses knew better than to have yourself around the playground with R. Kelly. Come on now. I refuse to believe as Black people that we are this naive. I refuse to believe it, but I'm starting to see it. I don't understand. And you know what, Andrea Kelly, let me give you a little piece of this as well. And yes, you were a victim too. I'm not taking that away from you. You were definitely a victim as well. You met this man when you were 19, which is still young, is still very impressionable. And I didn't pay attention to how old you all were when you got married, but I'm assuming it was still very young. You had 3 kids with this man, and I really hate using the word man when it comes to him, but you have 3 kids with him. And I get it to the point where you have to kind of straddle that line regardless of how you may personally feel about him because of the things that he's done to you and the things that he's deprived you of and the things that he's even done to your children and deprived your children of, which you said in this show of holidays, birthdays, basically a normal life. They've been teased by their peers in school because of the things that he's done as well. So you kind of had to straddle that fence where it's like, this is still my children's father, regardless of how much of a piece of trash that he is, but he's still an effed up individual. Where I'm going to give you some light at is, now, I guess this video was from 2017, but it was around the time that you all were filming this special. And you're riding around in a car, singing his songs, telling people to buy those tickets because, you know, you need that child support, buy his music because you need that child support, which I get, you do, because regardless of how many people are calling you to choreograph, how many people are calling you to dance or whatever, you're still not going to make as much money as R. Kelly. So until you get yourself together, which I don't know when that will be, because you're back and forth so much on how you feel about him, because you can't be filming during the day that he's this horrible monster and then in the car supporting him. I don't understand. I mean, the first thing that I would think is that you would change your last name if you had this much hate and resentment for this man. Pretty sure that your children's last name is Kelly. So maybe that's why you've kept it. But girl, if you feel this strongly about this man, as you said in this special, then there need to be some changes made. So you're riding around supporting him and then telling him to go to hell in the next hour. So when people were giving you hell after this video circulated, because you know people are going to dig. People are going to dig regardless if they support you or not. They're going to dig. They're going to find something. But the other day, you released a video trying to clap back at people for questioning your motives because of these videos that you made during the filming of this, where you were defending him. And in this video, you were still defending him. I don't understand. Now you're sitting up here saying that other people can't say this about him and say that about him, but I can because that's my baby's daddy, and you know that's family, and you know I could talk about family but you can't. That's true to an extent, but you all have put this man's business out here and you were part of it. You were part of it when you first stepped on VH1 on Hollywood X's. That was the first time, as long as I've known about R. Kelly, since what, 91 when he first came out, 91, 92, whatever, I think it was 91. From when he first came out onto the scene, when you did Hollywood X's just a few years back, that was the first time that I knew he was married. And Sparkle said she didn't even know he was married. A lot of people didn't even know about you. So for you, as long as you've been on the scene, you have been dogging him. So what do you expect everybody else to do? And then finding out what he did to you, of course people are going to feel some kind of way about what you said out of your own mouth that he did to you, what other people around said that he did to you. You think that we're not going to say anything about him after he's been exposed like this? And just because you feel a certain way because you got called out, we can't say nothing. Girl, if you don't go on somewhere, you better go on somewhere. Now, I don't know what happened. Maybe his people reached out to you and maybe you got paid a little something extra. I don't know what's going on, but you're the one that put the business out there, not us. We're reacting to what we see. And you would think that our reactions in support of you would have you coming back at people a different way who are questioning your motives. Now, R. Kelly has always had a way of pulling people back in when shit gets hot on him. So maybe that's what happened to you. Maybe he knew that you were someone who he could reach out to, or his people could reach out to and try to do some damage control after all of this has been said and done. But girl, you tried every inch of our being trying to clap back at people for things that you said that are very contradicting on both sides. So you obviously need some help as well. You and your children need help, because this back and forth, singing to his music, which you have every right to do, but telling people that he's a monster and he's a horrible person and, you know, he beat you and he would yell at you if the milk wasn't cold enough, or, you know, something like that. But then the next breath, you're saying, buy his music, support him. No, It don't work that way, girl. It does not work that way at all. Oh, yeah, I've been waiting for this part, honey. Let me tell you, because there were still some surprises that came out of this. So let's discuss R. Kelly and Aaliyah. Now, for my younger listeners who may have heard about Aaliyah but aren't quite familiar with her, she came out in 94. So that was we'll say that was the mid 90s. She came out in 94. And she was R. Kelly's artist. That's how everybody looked at her. And at this time, we didn't know what was going on with R. Kelly behind the scenes. Now, Leo's my age, and so is Brandy and Monica. We're all around the same age, a year or two difference between all of us. In the 90s, we had options. You didn't have to be a fan of all of them, but I can guarantee you that you could find more people who liked Aaliyah, Monica, and Brandy. Aaliyah came with a different flavor. She had kind of like that tomboy, TLC, laid back, cool vibe to her that I think more people could relate to. Brandy had like a girl next door, innocent type image. And Monica had, the down home street, I'll cut you, but I'll sing you a lullaby type image. Aaliyah was just like the girl who you sat next to in class. That's how when you looked at her, that's what you saw. So he gave her this image that was very relatable. The longer Aaliyah was out with him, and this is still her first album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Eventually, people started talking. Okay, yeah, she's his artist, but why are they always together? It was really weird. After a while, I'm not going to lie, as much as I still like Aaliyah, as much as I still like R. Kelly, at the time, mind you, I was 14, 15 years old myself, but I still and many of us that age, were still kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird that they're just together all the time. Can't you just produce her or let her do her own thing? But he was in every video, every interview. They started dressing alike. It just got weird where even people started side-eyeing Aaliyah, like, why are you this close to this grown man? And it wasn't to the point where I don't think it was victim shaming, but it was just like, okay, this is different. Let's just put it like that. So as time went by, maybe a year or so after her career, her album was bomb. It was doing very good. She had a couple of videos out, had a remix out. She was just putting out hit after hit. And then, boom, you started hearing that they were a couple. And people were like, well, wasn't she just on Star Search a few years ago? And she was only 12, but now she's not saying her age. But everybody knew that she was a teenager. Everybody knew that she was in her mid-teens. I mean, that was no secret. She could not say her age as much as she wanted to, but everybody knew. And mind you, at this point, let me see, R. Kelly may have had his third album coming out, but I mean, he was still fairly new. He had a lot of success, obviously, but he was still pretty much new to the game too. This was the mid 90s. He had just came out in the early 90s. Rumors started flying that she and R. Kelly were boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't think people really knew R. Kelly's age exactly. Of course, it was found out pretty quickly, but we knew he was grown, especially the things that he was singing about. We knew he was a grown man well into his 20s. Come to find out, he was 27. She was 15. Now, in the documentary, I wasn't quite sure if it was alleged that she was pregnant and that's what the issue was, or if it was that they got caught having sex. But somehow, R. Kelly goes to his tour manager, which I'm going to wear that tour manager out. Just give me some time. Goes to the tour manager and says, Aaliyah's in trouble, which I took it that she was pregnant. Somebody said they didn't take it that way, so I don't know. I don't think it was really specified what happened. But basically, we need to get back to Chicago and we need to get married. So, okay, what kind of trouble was she in to where y'all needed to get married? Anyway, mind you, let's replay this again. He was 27, she was 15. Then it got out that Aaliyah and R. Kelly were married in Cook County. Now, I remember watching MTV because I used to be an MTV girl. I loved back then. We had the Real World, MTV Jams, Yo MTV Raps, Road Rules. We had some good shows on MTV back then. They didn't just show movies, and Teen Mom. They didn't just show that stuff. They actually had good quality program and they showed music videos. But I used to watch videos all day long back then, so I would have it on BET and MTV pretty much majority of the day. I remember watching something on MTV and them cutting in and saying that Aaliyah and R. Kelly were married and that they had the marriage certificate. And I just remember being floored. I'm sorry, I remember this. I clearly remember this. I used to also have a subscription to Vibe magazine. I had a subscription to Vibe magazine for years. Pretty much all through my teenage years, I think up until my early 20s. And then I just stopped the subscription because pretty much stuff started being shown online. And this was back when Vibe magazine was huge, like when it was about as big as Rolling Stone. It was that big. I remember getting that Vibe magazine like a week or so later it came out. It had Aaliyah and R. Kelly's marriage certificate in there. Neither one of them ever spoke out about it. God rest her soul. I really don't like talking about it too much, but this is something that happened. I don't believe any of this is alleged. I believe that they truly were married. I'm sorry, I do. When Aaliyah's family found out, when her parents found out, of course they were livid. They didn't know that was going on, even though they were making it seem like they were there with her every step of the way, but obviously you weren't. You gave so much control to R. Kelly and let him have so much time with her to the point where now they're married. It ended up in an annulment in that marriage, which it should have. But this is what has pissed me off this entire time about this Aaliyah situation. Now, we all pretty much know that Aaliyah and R. Kelly got married. And it was pretty much confirmed, 2 or 3 different people, that there was something going on between the two of them and that they were even caught in certain situations. Now, as I mentioned a little while ago, I really hate going there because Aaliyah's not here anymore to defend herself, but we can only go by what we're told for this particular story. So, of course, as it has always been done, Aaliyah's mom comes out with a statement denying any sexual relationship or marriage between Aaliyah and R. Kelly. Which, bless her heart. I know this has to be hard because she's been dealing with this. I know this was something that just devastated her. Not only that, I know she's still dealing with the loss of a child. She's still dealing with Aaliyah's death all these years later, which is totally understandable. But we all pretty much know that there was something going on, and there was a marriage certificate that no one has really came out and said that this was fake. Now, Aaliyah's mom is still having to deal with this all these years later. I believe that she feels that this is a part of Aaliyah's legacy, which it kind of is, I'm sorry. People are always going to associate R. Kelly and Aaliyah, not just because of the music. They did a great album together, they had a great working relationship, but there was still something that happened that you can't deny. And the problem that I have with... Now, okay, let me backtrack real quick. Now, I understand that Aaliyah's mom doesn't want to tarnish her daughter's legacy. I get it. But again, we all know. Aaliyah passed away in 2001. She had a very short career, but made such a huge impact. People truly loved Aaliyah. Okay, they saw her more than what happened between her and R. Kelly. I don't think anyone blames Aaliyah if this marriage did happen, if this relationship between the two of them was a thing. I truly don't think that anybody is blaming Aaliyah for it. I don't think anybody ever has. She was a child. Okay, and especially knowing what we know now, that she wasn't the only one, she wasn't the first, and she wasn't the last. Just be thankful that you got her out of that situation. I don't believe that anything is going to tarnish her legacy. I don't. This hasn't, so... what else will? The first thing I think of Aaliyah always is her music and her dancing. Those are the first 2 things I always think about. I don't think about R. Kelly. Honestly, I really don't. Yes, it is something that's out there, but the first thing when I think about Aaliyah, I'm thinking about putting on one of her songs. That's about it. She is still very much loved. But this denial that you keep projecting out there, it is doing nothing but protecting this child molester. And again, I really don't want to get too much into, too late now. But there's tea here. There's tea here, and there has always been something here. With you constantly denying that something happened, but hasn't done nothing but protected him all these years. If you all back then would have said something, and I'm not shaming, but I'm gathering a little bit. If you all would have said something back then, that yes, this monster married my daughter. Yes, he was having sex with my daughter. We wouldn't even be having these discussions right now. Yes, we would have missed out on tons of R. Kelly music, but so what? There would have been so many lives that would not have been ruined. And for you to still do this all these years later, I mean, it's not doing anything but protecting him. That's all it's doing. Aaliyah's fine. Aaliyah's fine. But you're protecting R. Kelly. I don't know how true this is. I heard that Aaliyah's estate owns the rights to R. Kelly's music. So if that is true, I need to do some more investigating on that. But if that is true, then maybe that's a reason why you won't speak out and tell the truth. And while I'm reading Aaliyah's family, let me get Barry Hankerson together real quick. Now, Barry Hankerson is Aaliyah's mom's brother, so it's her uncle. And he is a famous record producer, owns Black Ground Records, which was Aaliyah's record label, and also was the record label of Timberland when he first came out. Now, you want to know the reason why you can't find some of Aaliyah's music and Timberland's music on streaming services, especially their older stuff. Well, Timberland's older stuff is because Barry Hankerson doesn't want to put Black Ground Records, even Tony Braxton's Lieber album, doesn't want to put his music on streaming services because he doesn't believe in it. So that lets you know where his mindset is, his type of person that he is. However, I'm going to let you hold this L too because you were the one that brought R. Kelly to Aaliyah. Now, granted, you didn't know, I'm pretty sure, I hope you didn't know what he was doing, what he was capable of, the type of person that he was when you introduced this man to your 12-year-old niece. However, I know you heard people talking. If everyone else heard it, I know you did. Even your son, when asked if Aaliyah and R. Kelly were married, he can't even speak on it. He just says, I would rather just not speak on it, or I can't say anything. If they weren't married, he would have just said, no, my cousin. So what did these adults, especially the ones in Aaliyah's family, know? So after you even heard things going on, you still allowed your teenage niece to be around this man still working. So it seemed that at a point for you, her career was more important than her mental health. And not only her mental health, but her physical health as well. So, sir, you are to blame in this as well. You were right there. Aaliyah's mom could scream till she's green in the face that she and her husband were always with Aaliyah while she was on the road and everything like that. Obviously not. Why didn't you see to it that she had a proper chaperone? Not speaking out on anything, not taking responsibility for anything is not going to change the fact that the adults in Aaliyah's life completely and totally let her down. Last thing I'm going to say about Aaliyah is Damon Dash, who was Aaliyah's fiance at the time of her death, he just recently did an interview with Hip Hop Wired, and I saw it on YouTube and I also saw it on Instagram. So he basically finally is speaking out on the situation between Aaliyah and R. Kelly. He has never said anything before out of respect for her family. But after watching the special, he said that he saw a young lady on there who couldn't even speak about it, who didn't even want to talk about her time with R. Kelly, how hard it was to talk about, I should say. And it reminded him of Aaliyah because she tried to talk to him about it, but it was just way too painful. And he said that he was kind of glad that he didn't know what happened between the two of them because he would have probably had to address R. Kelly himself. But you know what? Never mind. He also alludes to the fact that Jay-Z's working relationship with R. Kelly when they were doing the Best of Both Worlds was a huge division within Rockefeller. Dame and other people on the label didn't agree with Jay-Z working with R. Kelly, but then a lot of them just saw the dollar signs. That also must have been why they all, including you, Dame, were all in the videos dancing y'all's asses off. But anyway, Dame would go to Jay-Z like, this was your friend that, he did this to. This is my girlfriend. This is your friend. Someone that we care about. Still going to work with this guy. And I guess over everything, the opportunity for money overrid anything. That caused a huge divide between Dame and Jay-Z around that time as well. Dame didn't want to have anything to do. He didn't want to take any money. He didn't want to have anything to do with this project that Jay-Z and R. Kelly were doing together. I don't believe it. Dame, I do not believe you, especially after looking at you in that Fiesta video, just getting your life. I don't believe it. You've never been the type of girl to turn down a coin. I don't believe you. Just think about it. Aaliyah was only 22 when she passed away. She met R. Kelly at 12 years old and they got married in the annulment at 15. That was less than 10 years from the last time that she had seen R. Kelly, or I should say been with R. Kelly. So it definitely was still bothering her. And rightfully so. It was a traumatic experience. A coworker and I were talking the other day, and she said, I wonder if Aaliyah was still living, would she had talked about it by now? And I want to believe that she would have. And if she wouldn't, then that would have been her business. It would have been good for her too and her family, but I think that she would have. However, of course, we'll never know. I just feel bad that she had to deal with that in her short life. The adults around her failed her, and up until her death, it obviously still was something that bothered her. R. Kelly, you are just complete and total utter trash. So now I have to gather these people in your circle, and I'm not talking about the victims, but your peoples. I'm talking about these grown-ass men and women. They were the ones that were approaching these teenagers for you, handing them your number in the studio, some even admitting to seeing some tapes, forging marriage certificates. I mean, there are so many guilty people here. And not only just the people in your circle, but I want to get on some of these parents too in a minute. I have to. I have to. It has to be done. This fool had police officers on his payroll. So not only do they not protect black people, they don't protect young black girls either. I mean, who are these officers? Who are they? You were tipping off a child molester just because his name is R. Kelly. Your security guard, who also became your brother-in-law, is complicit on so many levels. Not only did you admit to approaching these girls who you all knew were teenagers to give them R. Kelly's information, you admitted to seeing some tapes, but of course none with underage girls on them. Oh no, of course you didn't watch those. So you also knew that he was cheating on your sister, Andrea. I mean, being a security guard to a coward requires a lot of work, because I'm sure he needed protection 24/7. So you were pretty much around the entire time. And you admitted to knowing that he had these girls around. Of course, you didn't see anything. Nobody saw anything. All of these grown ass people, and no one saw anything, but never saw anything. Nobody saw anything, but they suspected. You suspected all this stuff, but never said anything. So many grown ass people can get so starstruck that they just don't even, that common sense just goes straight out the door. Common sense and decency are gone. Sparkle. Girl, now, Sparkle, now I've liked you. Everybody knows you can sing. You know, I don't know about all that 5 octave, but you may be able to. You know, I haven't heard it, but you know, you can sing, girl. So, you were around all this time. Now, some outlets were calling you his ex-girlfriend. You made it seem like y'all were just buddy, and that was your homie, and y'all didn't have it like that. You were just his friend, backup singer, and then turned artist. Okay, I get that, but you let it kind of slip that you knew things were going on. You had heard things, and you kind of knew things were going on. Let me get that right. Yet, you still took your 14-year-old ripe niece around him. I get it. He's talented. You wanted her to be the female Bow Wow. We didn't hear her rapping, but she may have been able to do a little something from the video that we saw. We couldn't hear it, but she looked like, you know, she had the control on her bars. Okay, I get it. You had heard about him and younger girls, and you still brought your niece around there. Obviously, you really didn't think that he would do anything to your family. That's what you thought. And now, next to Aaliyah, your niece is now the most infamous R. Kelly girl. I mean, let's just keep it real. It doesn't matter what type of environment you're in, people are going to talk. All these people saying that they walked in on R. Kelly having sex with this 14-year-old, this 16-year-old, this 17-year-old, and no one was in there putting it all together like, oh, you know, well, yeah, I saw him having sex with so-and-so, or what, you know, I mean, Sparkle, you still wanted to get your career going. Yeah, you had an album. You had a couple songs on there that were cute. Your career really didn't get taken off. And it was partly because you did do a good thing. Now, I'm going to give you your props in a second here. But pretty much, tour manager, I didn't even care to remember what most of y'all's names were. But y'all know the one I'm talking about. The one who said that he was the one he went to about the marriage certificate, getting married to Aaliyah, I should say. He was the one that R. Kelly went to saying that, you know, I can't stop videotaping myself, you know, with these girls, you know, and you still didn't do anything. You're as guilty as him. Most of y'all around there are as guilty as R. Kelly. You may not have been involved in the act per se, but you were involved. How can you go all this time knowing what you knew, and now you want to speak out on it? But now that these victims are now women, do you think that makes it any better that you're speaking out now? And I'm pretty sure most of y'all are speaking out, and you haven't been employed by R. Kelly in quite some time. You probably need a couple coins here and there. I get it. Now, this tour store manager, you can look like the fun, cool uncle all you want to. I don't care. You're about to get it. You need to be under the jail as well. I mean, forging documents, recruiting these girls. Come on now. He allegedly confided in you many times. You weren't his attorney. There weren't any attorney-client privileges that you had to keep silent, that you couldn't have said nothing, that could have been broken, whatever. I mean, as an adult, you were obligated to speak out. You were obligated to report this, regardless of what your position was in this man's entourage. Now you're sitting up here looking all stupid as ever, talking about Aaliyah looked at me like she wanted me to say something, basically saying like she wanted help and you wish that you would have. I mean, you're a little too late for that, you know. I mean, you saw to it that they got married, so did you see it in her eyes or whatever that she didn't want to get married? Did you see it that she wasn't in the most comfortable position? And what about these other girls that you knew were underage and you're booking hotels for them, you're getting flights for them, making sure that they're on video sets and all this other stuff? I mean, come on now. That's just ridiculous. So you're going to tell me that you knew everything that was going on pretty much because he confided in you and he felt comfortable confiding in you because obviously he knew that you weren't going to say anything. You are as guilty as him. Forgery. You forged the marriage license. So you had to forge her birth certificate so that she could show that she was 18? Wow. And I hope these complicit ass adults didn't come out to try to make people feel bad for them. I'm not saying that's what they did, but I'm really hoping that they didn't and try to make it seem like they were victims too because they were around R. Kelly and possibly felt like they could have been threatened or whatever, which that was a possibility, I'm sure. R. Kelly wasn't the Don. What the hell? And these parents, now let me tell you, now I done really got pissed off because this just makes no sense. It's not like you all were having your teenage daughters around R. Kelly in the early 90s when no one really knew what was going on. This was well after Aaliyah. This was well after the sex tape. And you all still let your teenage daughters be around R. Kelly because your children threaten you with what? Oh, I won't talk to you anymore. Oh, I'll run away from home. Okay, I mean, do what you got to do. But you letting them be around him, in their mind, in what he was feeding them, well, he wasn't feeding them, but you know what I mean. What he was telling them was, your parents gave you to me. They didn't want you. So you allowing that fell right into his trap. Why would you take a teenager to an R. Kelly concert? Why? After all that's been happening with him through all these years, why? Why would you allow him to be backstage? Why would you allow her to go on stage? Why would you allow her to go backstage? People thinking that, and see, this is that way of thinking that a lot of us have, that it's not going to happen to me. You know, and especially the ones with fathers involved. He's not going to do that while I'm here. That just happens to single mothers, you know, or fathers who aren't around, you know, whatever. He doesn't care. This fool does not discriminate. If your daughter is fair game, your daughter is fair game. So I always say, don't get pissed off just because now it involves you. You should have been pissed off before. And you should have been pissed off to the point where you didn't want your daughter around this man at 16, 17 years old. Okay, if she wants to be in the music business, if she has a great voice or whatever, there are other ways to go about it. But R. Kelly would not be the way. I don't care who he's worked with. I don't care how many awards he has. I don't care how much money he has. From everything that has gone on about this man for all these years, I don't care. R. Kelly would not be the way. He would not be my golden ticket. There is no way. And my daughter fits the description? Oh no. Nope. The actions of him and everyone around him, including his fans, and yes, that includes me, it proves that black girls and black women don't matter. And let me elaborate on this. Let's just talk about the constant and almost common disrespect and degrading of black women and on the daily. I mean, this is proven by memes and posts being made calling women bitches like it's our name, always talking about how crazy black women are, these internet personalities constantly mimicking the worst stereotypes of black women, and these are all supposed to be jokes, yet there's nothing funny about it. And you should be ashamed. Even little socially conscious Chance the Rapper, who, with R. Kelly a couple years ago, he did it because he didn't value the victims. He didn't believe them, and he said because they were young black girls. I mean, where does it stop? It's not just men doing this. Women, we do it to each other. And I had to catch myself sometimes too And it creeps that borderline of being just a little bit on the more mean side, on the little bit more degrading side, instead of just being good old fashioned shady and petty. You know what I mean? I have to check myself as well. But we really need to stop disrespecting each other. We have enough issues with everybody else. We fight with each other about skin complexion, about class, sexuality, gender, about who's woke, who's not, about music, basketball teams. There's nothing wrong with friendly back and forth. I mean, we do it all the time, between a lot of me and my friends and all of us, especially when it comes to the Ohio State and Michigan game. It's friendly back and forth. Now, sometimes some people do get in their feelings, but it happens. That's different from just constantly disrespecting. And the crazy thing that I see a lot of disrespect and a lot of these posts and stuff like that come from men who have daughters, are married, have mothers, which I mean, we all do, but you have sisters, you have aunts. Yet every post when you're referring to a woman, it's bitch this, bitch that. I don't understand. And yes, women, we do dog black men, and we know that their egos can't take it. We could say something very minuscule compared to what is said about us, and they will be in their feelings for 2 weeks posting shit about black women. Black women are the most disrespected, unappreciated people ever. And black men have been made to feel so inferior for so long that it just feels like I can say what I want to say. I can do what I want to do. If you piss me off, I can call you a bitch. If I see this gay man, I can call him a faggot, because every little single thing that has been done to our black men has taken away all these years of their manhood. Let's just keep it real. But we just need to stop doing this to each other. We get it enough from the outside, from other races. We don't need this. Now, my other question is, does this make y'all look at R. Kelly's music any different now? Knowing that he was singing about teenage girls, knowing that the song that he wrote for Michael Jackson, You Are Not Alone, was actually written for a 17-year-old girl that he got pregnant and she had a miscarriage. And and I ask this because I see so many people, and especially black people, who are acting like it's going to kill them to stop listening to his music. And you know what? And that leads me to this little letter that I wrote this week, and it's titled, Dear Black People, I got time for y'all as well. Now, I love y'all. I know I just said we need to come together, but we also need to think. Now, why is it like giving up your firstborn child to stop listening to his music? I love R. Kelly's music as well. I grew up on it. I've seen him in concert. I have a majority of his albums, but it's not a life or death sacrifice to stop listening and supporting his music or him. And yes, I'm going to go here. I'm sure it would be easier for some to stop listening to his music if he came out as a gay man than him being exposed as a serial child molester. And it goes to prove how backwards some of us still think. It also proves the point that I made earlier, how black girls and black women aren't valued, even by our own people. And that includes both black men and women, as I mentioned before. All of R. Kelly's victims, including Aaliyah, especially Aaliyah because she was the most famous one that we know about. And it was mainly by black women. And this is reason number 5039 as to why black folks will never be able to come together. Now, I know people are still going to listen to R. Kelly's music. I know this. But I think it's just crazy that his streams soared, hit a record for him in streaming his music after all this came out. There are still people on the internet, grown-ass people, defending him. And I can understand, you saying, well, I don't know who to believe. However, if everyone is saying the same exact thing about one particular person, maybe there's a slight truth to it. And we may never know. R. Kelly may never do any time for this. He may just keep on, he may never have to face punishment for any of this at all. But does that mean that we just throw everything under the rug and act like nothing ever happened? Of course, until it happens to one of your people, someone that you love, someone that you know. We had to stop doing that, y'all. We seriously have to stop doing that. And this is not a call to ban R. Kelly. That's not my place. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm in the business for. I just really want people to understand that this is bigger than R. Kelly. And as I mentioned before, any of these other perverts that have been out here all these years doing the same exact thing, I'm not worried about them. And I don't mean to say I'm not worried about them, that what they did wasn't wrong. What I'm saying is we're talking about R. Kelly right now. Quit that deflecting stuff and trying to make it seem like, well, since we're checking out this person and dissecting everything that they did, what about these other ones? That is so childish when people do that. It's like a kid saying, but they did this and they did that. Why can't I do this? So-and-so goes here. I mean, stop it. Stop the deflection. Pedophilia or any sex crime is not a racial issue. It's a criminal issue. And anyone who is suspected of it needs to be investigated. And it also reminds me of something someone told me before. Someone said, a lot of people seem to only be pro-black when it comes to protecting black men, but it's crickets when it comes to protecting black women. Where's the lie? I don't care about them. I care about our people right now because no one else does, and barely our own people do. So that's where I'm at with that. So black people, we really need to get it together. We need to stop fighting each other so much. We have been conditioned for so many years to find the worst in each other because that is what is found from other people in us. We really need to stop doing that. R. Kelly, of course, has since responded, which he is allowed to do. He's allowed to defend himself, of course. But according to TMZ, it says, R. Kelly did not watch a single minute of the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly that has now put him in the eye of a ferocious storm. I find that hard to believe that he didn't watch. He's way too much of a narcissist not to see what people are saying about him, especially firsthand, instead of hearing it from other people. Also, according to TMZ, it says sources in day-to-day contact with R. Kelly say the singer is disgusted by the series. I find that funny. Which makes shocking allegations against him, including sex with various underage girls, physical abuse, and mind control. People interviewed say he's running a sex cult. The sources say R. Kelly views the series as a vendetta against him by producers and others who have hated him throughout his professional career. Yep, let's just blame everybody else. Listen, I'm a firm believer if pretty much everyone is saying the same thing about one person, it usually has a pretty good chance of being true. I'm just saying, but whatever. What do I know? The article continues. We're told R. Kelly's team downloaded him on the various people who appeared on the show, and he claims he doesn't know half of them. He claims the other half hate him for various personal and professional reasons. R. Kelly also claims that there were various people who wanted to go on camera and defend him, but producers shut them out. Okay. The sources say R. Kelly is resolute. As one source puts it, he's going to sue everybody who had anything to do with this. Of course he is. In another article posted on TMZ, R. Kelly is vowing to expose his accusers for what he calls blatant lies being spewed on Lifetime's docuseries. And he's going down the list one by one, TMZ has learned. Sources close to Kelly tell us that he and his camp are in the middle of launching a new website called survivinglies.com. which we're told will attempt to expose all of his accusers as liars as well as reveal their true motivation behind their allegations. There was a Facebook page dedicated to the new cause. The site itself is not live yet as of this post. So this post was done yesterday morning Pacific time. So still don't know if you want to check it out, survivinglies.com. I'm pretty sure it'll be quite interesting. There was an update at 1:27 p.m. Pacific time yesterday, and I'm recording this on Tuesday, January 8th, so this was from January 7th. The page has been pulled after posting alleged text messages between Kelly and one of the young females, where she repeatedly called the singer daddy, a spokesperson for Facebook tells us. The page violated our community standards and has been removed. The rep continues, we do not tolerate bullying or sharing others' private contact information and take action on content that violates our policies as soon as we're aware. So he felt that his justification for exposing people were posting text messages of these girls who admitted that he told them to call him daddy, and that's what she was saying in the text messages. But it's okay, whatever. So there's that. That's where we're at right now. So he's working on a website to expose these people. He had a Facebook page, but the Facebook page was shut down. So there's where R. Kelly is as of now. Okay. Well, since the special aired, there have been numerous celebrities, surprisingly, that have come out and finally said something. Yeah, there have been celebrities who have said stuff in the past. The more that these celebrities and other public figures speak out against this that's going on, this abuse against And it's not only just women. It's not only just black women. It's not only just white women. It's not only just girls. It's men too. It's boys. There needs to be more discussion on this. Quit trying to hide from it. And to the people who were acting like they weren't bothered before, but now that you're seeing all this evidence and you actually have seen the victims and people that were around and saying all this other stuff, how do you feel about taking up for him before to know that this was going on, but knowing and thinking that this could have been your sister, your aunt, your cousin, your friend, list goes on. Sometimes to feel an inch of sympathy for people, you may need to put yourself in their shoes. Even if it's just a toe, you may need to do that. There are just so many people out here nowadays that are just, it ain't my business. I'm not paying attention to it. If it doesn't involve me, I could care less. And to an extent, yeah, we do have to be like that about certain things because, yes, everything isn't our business. However, when it comes to things like this, don't wait until it comes in your front yard. And that's all I got to say about that. So we'll see what comes out of this besides more R. Kelly streams. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out and what other, if any, celebrities are going to have people coming out and telling their stories. And are people who passed away already, are they exempt? Like Michael Jackson. Even though he was acquitted acquitted once. He settled the first time, but he was acquitted once. And also Elvis Presley, because it came out, I didn't know this, but that Priscilla, his widow, was a teenager when they first started dating. And I guess when they got married too, I didn't really pay too much attention to it at the time, but I had to look into that to see what's going on. But I wonder if, because she's still alive. And if she hasn't had any issue with it, then, what? What can we do about that? Does it make it right? No. We'll see what happens with all this. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, what this Surviving R. Kelly special will expose in everything and anybody else. So I thank you for listening this week. I was just going to have this be a special episode where I was going to do this and then do a regular show, which I'm still going to try and put out another show by the weekend. It was just too much being sick and trying to get better. I had to do a lot of editing to this because there was some things that I said that I shouldn't have said, so I had to take those out. There were a lot of breaths that I had to take, from trying to catch my breath from talking, from being congested and everything. TMI, but that's why it took so long to edit this and get it out there. So hopefully it is Thursday now, so hopefully it'll be out today, Thursday. I've recorded this Tuesday and hopefully getting it out there Thursday. But thank you again for listening. If you have any questions, comments, if you have any products or anyone that you would like for me to endorse, please hit me up at DannieBSpeaks@gmail.com. Check out my website, which also does feature my podcast, DannieBSpeaks.com. You can also listen to the podcast on Apple Music, Google Play Music, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So once again, thank you for listening to this quote-unquote special episode. As I mentioned, hopefully I'll be able to get a regular episode out by the weekend. If not, it'll be out early next week. So take care of yourselves and each other. Be blessed and be loved. Peace.